HMS Argus in 1918, but the armistice came before they went into action. You were after the Sopwith Cuckoos, I suppose. The Sopwith Cuckoos were before your time.
Yes.
Right.
Almost, yes.
Right. Right. Eric was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross, and I have his citation included the words, "for skill and fortitude in operations against the enemy." So we're very privileged to have Eric with us today. He's probably the nearest thing we could get to a Handley Page 0400 pilot. And someone who flew in Bomber Command, which we might regard as the independent force on steroids. So, Eric, if you'd like to tell us something of your experiences.
Well, it's an honour to be talking to you, gentlemen. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
I'll stand and sit as we go. I thought we might just briefly run, not as a sort of a story, but just bits and pieces of things as they come to my mind, and tell you how I got into things and some of the things that happened as such. I grew up in West Cogra. At the age of 6 years of age, I used to make balsa rubber-powered model aeroplanes. Used to ride across the Mascot, which was just a great big paddock, and sit in the cockpit of the Red Comet that won the England-Australia race. Sat in the cockpit of the Silver Cloud of Smithies. Met Amy Mollison, Amelia Earhart, a lot of those people, and as a young lad, I couldn't wait to get into the Air Force, so I joined up at 17 and a half. The militia got me for a short period of time before the Air Force call-up came through, where I studied night things on the reserve, and then I went up AWL from the Army and got into the Air Force. I was mustered as a pilot, which was very good, and I was sent out to Temora, and after did initial training at Bradfield Park and did your theory and so forth. I went to Temora as a pilot. I'm flying Tiger Moths, about 20 odd hours. I nearly got scrubbed as a pilot because I used to land up here and go boom, 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 till the chief flying instructor said, "Barton, where do you look?" And I said, "When you go to land." And I said, "Well, along my nose, you know." What a stupid question. He said, "That's your trouble. Look out 45 degrees and land, and you'll see exactly where you are," which I did, and we did a 3-point cruiser. And ever after that, I could land any sort of an aircraft, whether it be a Lank or a Stirling or whatever. So that was a period of that. There was a few dramas there. Some of my mates got killed running into each other, not looking where you're going, and all that sort of thing. And that was part of the course. Then was mustered to go to Canada to fly on twin engines in the multis. Mustered for Canada, put on a troop ship. We no sooner got out to sea than we were chased by Jap subs. We made it for Pango. We got to Hawaii just after the Pearl Harbor, 4 or 5 months after Pearl Harbor, and saw the devastation there, pulled in there, and then landed in San Francisco, Frisco to McLeod in Alberta, up to Edmonton, the gateway to Alaska. We left here in summertime. We still had summer uniforms. We get to Edmonton, it was minus 60 degrees below zero. I'd never seen snow before in my life. We all jumped off the back of the truck, went slipping on our backsides and so on and so forth. Spent 7 months there, flying on Ansons. the early Ansons had the wind-up undercarriage, which were a hell of a job trying to do circuits and bumps. I forget how many winds up and how many winds down. We thought, well, to hell with that, we're not going to keep doing all that stupid business. If we're going to do circuits and bumps, we'd never mind the undercarriage. Halfway through, we got Canadian Ansons, and they were absolutely magic to drive, to fly rather. They had hydraulics. They had the early ones had fixed speed props. These had constant speed props. They had automatic landing gear and so forth. Very good. Went solo on that, and that's where I got my wings. Went to Wings Parade. There was, at this time, there were 3 Aussies on the whole squadron because we'd made a mess of one of them and ended up in hospital and got scarlet fever. So 2 of us were there for 7 months and the rest went on. I can recall one night at an Anson doing a cross country, and cross country at night, which flying over the Rockies around over McLeod in Alberta, very often with big storms, and I didn't know it was a cumulonimbus. It was just black. I flew into this jolly cumulonimbus, and if you guys would know, it's up and down draft, and it spat me out upside down at 40,000 feet. And my God, I thought, that's it, that's it, gone. Well, anyway, we managed to turn it right side up, but the Anson doesn't go to 40,000 feet. About 15. Somehow or other, I don't remember how I got out of it, but I got out of it. So there was 2 of us left, and we had a ball. We used to think it was a great ball because we used to nick off over where McLeod in Alberta was on the American border, and we used to hitchhike down across the border to the Yankee stations and draw a Yankee parachute and get a lift in all sorts of aeroplanes to Niagara Falls and whatnot. We used to fly around the Rockies on our own. They didn't know what to do with us, but eventually we got shoved on the Queen Mary. There was probably 15 Aussies and about 7,000 or 8,000 Americans on the old Queen Mary at Halifax, Nova Scotia. Crossed the Atlantic to England, flat out, 2 meals a day, 7 in a cabin, pretty much hot bunks, 2 meals, washing salt water, and up in the swimming pool. But we thought, well, that's all great fun as far as we're concerned. By that time I was 18 and a half, heading on 19. So, lots of stories there. I'm trying to shorten this so that I'll go on to the more nitty-gritties. There's lots of things in between. We got to England and all Aussies were posted to Brighton, the Grand or the Metropole. They were about 12 stories high. We no sooner got there than Lord Haw came up on the radio and said, well, why do you silly Australians come over here to be with the British, and do you think you're going to do something for the British? And well, we'll send a welcoming party to meet you. And of course, over that next night, there was air raid. That Lord Haw, as you know, is a German person speaking English. Up 7 floors up, down to the basement for an air raid. No lifts, up and down, up and down. We thought, to hell with that, that's just Australians, we don't do that sort of thing. We're going to go up and down, so it's to hell with them next time. But anyway, we survived all of that. Okay, we got selected as pilots. To keep our hand in, we got to fly Tiger Moths around Windsor Castle, where the Queen and the Duke and everybody else was. Eventually got posted to pilot AFU up in PAFU up in Scotland, and onto Oxfords, twin engine Oxfords. Landed one after cross country one night and annoyed everybody else by busting the tyres on the jolly thing. It wasn't my fault, there must have been a nail in the runway. We busted the tyre and stuck an Oxford up in its nose. And Oxford, as you know, is a funny little thing. It's got two motors there and a nose there, and it looks funny when you're sliding along like that, and down and there's sparks. And then I held everybody else up, and there's Barton's gone and done something stupid. All we go round and round and round and round. And so that was that particular thing. And so we managed to get through that. We then got posted on to Wellingtons to do OTU, Operational Training Unit, Wellingtons. And Wellies, you start to form up a crew of a navigator, a wireless op, and myself, somebody else can't think. Did training in the Wellington to be proficient in twin engines. I've skipped quite a bit, but when we got to finally almost finish our training, we were posted on to semi-ops, and at that time was the D-Day, and we flew around D-Day with Wellington, throwing out chaff, as we called it, aluminium strips to upset the anti-aircraft guns. Flying over D-Day is something that is in my mind. You've obviously seen photographs of D-Day. All that day, that night, the sky was covered with aircraft going over. We knew what was on, we knew something big was on, didn't know what it was. We were told to just do what you were being told. You will be told what to do, and up you go. And I can remember flying around over there, seeing these poor guys in the landing craft, getting up to the shore. American landing crafts, they all had their equipment on. Some of them were just lowered down too deeply, and they jumped into the water and just went straight down. They could not get rid of their gear fast enough. Seeing Horsa gliders with their tails shot off. We tried to do as best we could. We were not at that time equipped with other than small practice bombs. Once we got rid of those and flew out the chart, we flew round and round. The German fighters were just almost non-existent as far as we were concerned. And so I'll skip from there. After I did my ops, 2.5 sort of thing, I ended up as an instructor on a Wellington. And I can remember, this is rather strange, flying along one day out of the OTU. Another Wellington flew up beside us and put his fingers up like that, feathered both propellers and flew along beside us, and I thought, my God, what's going on here? I don't believe this. I must have gone to the wild blue yonder. This must be what it looks like. And anyway, he waved like that, and off he went. As he went past, there was a crowd of blue flame coming out of the centre of this Wellington. It was the test bed for T.C. Whittle's first jet motor. And we never heard of such a thing, didn't know there was such a thing. But you know, Wellington is a geodetic construction terribly strong, and they must have had this motor in the middle of these jolly things. And we just never learnt for ages later that's what it was. Then, yeah, where have we got to? We went over to D-Day. After we did our training there, we were posted to, pardon me, to heavy conversion onto 4 engines. And the 4-engine plane that they thought was very good for us was a Sterling. Well, the Sterling is about this high as far as the undercarriage is concerned, and it's a hellishly great, huge thing, and it's got oleo legs like this, and it's a bummer on the ground, and to put it up in the air, it's quite a nice thing to fly. So to learn to fly a Sterling is really something. That's how you use everything that you've got. To put the brakes on, you put your right brake on and your left brake on, that puts the brake on. But when you put your right, if you want to turn to the right, you put the right pedal on and you pull the lever on the right hand part of the wheel, and that turns the rudder and puts the brake on that wheel, so you kind of go like this all the time as you're taxiing along. And when you want to line up on the runway, you go this one, that one, this one, that one, and push the thing at the same time. So you're kind of like a monkey doing that and that and that. And you're yelling out to everybody in the aircraft. At this time we had a flight engineer, myself, radio op was my other Aussie. I'll tell you about the crew. There were 7 crew. At Sterling we had crewed up, we had 7 then. We had mid-upper gunner, rear gunner, wireless op, nav, bomb aimer on myself and the flight engineer. We did so many hours on the Sterling. Once you got them up in the air, they were very nice aircraft to fly. You probably know, you single out the Sterling. It was underpowered. It couldn't fly as fast as Wellington even, and of course it was that big they chopped the ends off the wings to make it fit under the hangar. That's how it came to be so small and ungainly. We of course bombing practice and anti-air and anti-fighter protection and all that sort of thing. All lots and lots of drills. It's a big and beautiful thing. Prior to that time we had, when you first crewed up as an Aussie, you get thrown into a big shed. You don't have a can of beer, but you just get thrown into a big shed and you go and find a pilot, a crew. I should have told you this before we got to this point. But I found another Aussie, Johnny Gibb, and myself, and then we had a Scotch navigator, a Scotch bomb aimer, 2 Geordies, and English chaps anyway. So there you go. That was our crew. The captain of a Lancaster had 7 crew, and whilst we were young at those days, it never used to worry me terribly much, but I did know that their lives were in my hands. Whatever I did, I had their lives at stake. If I did the wrong thing, that tended later on to weigh a bit heavily on you when you were trying to make certain decisions that your crew is important. Now, the capacity of a Lancaster can carry 10 to 12 tons of bombs. It can fly 20,000 feet, 2,000 gallons of fuel. Our trips are from 3 hours to 8 hours, and the air temperature is -40. The biggest bomb that we carry is the Grand Slam, which they took the bomb doors off the thing, and sorry. Anyway, it's an almighty great bomb. Come out. So, these here are, some of these are, I have obtained from the secrets of the British archives, and these depict every one of the raids that we did. And if you like, I'll just briefly go quickly through some of these. This particular one is on the 3rd of October 1944. Lancaster 1, G for George, which is me, its number, the pilot Flying Officer Barton, the navigator Sergeant James, and bomb aimer McIntosh, wireless op Johnny Gibb, and the mid-upper Reg Bennett, rear gunner Collins, and the engineer Graves. The attack was Wesseling. We took off at 08:30 in the morning and we came back at 15:50 in the afternoon. We attacked Wesseling at 1158 hours. That's midnight, 16,000 feet. Weather was 10 tenths cloud. We carried 1,000 heavy cookie, 10 500s, 12 500 incendiaries, and 4 GP purpose things. We identified the target on radar, and the bombs were falling. The heavy flak was predicted. Hit the mid-upper turret, the fuel gauge, the tyres, or main plane and DA were hit with the flak. Wesseling 1158, 16,500 feet. Result: we hit the target on the bombing run. Oh, then we were hit and we landed at Newmarket as instructed with the suspected tyre troubles, and we arrived back at base at 1530 hours. A piece of flak is, which I have here,
just so I happen to have with you,
which thank God I have it here. This is the piece of flak. You can see, if you are looking closely, it's curved and it's got the rimming of the shell still there. That was dug out of the instrument panel. If it had hit me, I wouldn't be singing and songs and things. But furthermore, it jiggered up the airspeed indicator, which is a little bit of a bummer. So to talk about flying by the seat of your pants, that's actually what we did. And highlighted some of these. To do with this one. The story about this one, it's very disjointed. I'm sorry, I'm not a very good lecturer now. 21st December 1944, the same crew, of course, Lank G for George, in G149. The bomb loads 1,000 heavy conversion things and 1,400 M5000 incendiaries. The target was Trier. It was 10 tenths cloud, the tops were 9,000 feet, and we took off at 11 minutes past 12. We came back at 5 o'clock. We bombed at 1500 hours, that's 3 o'clock, from 18,000 feet. It was identified on navigational aids when the leader's bombs were falling, seen falling, and he seemed to overshoot, but there was no result observed. Now, Trier was a troop support target. We were the only squadron fitted with the squadron aerodrome with a thing called FIDO. Have you ever heard of FIDO? Called Fog Intense Dispersal of. And we were the first aircraft and the first squadron made use of this because Trier was a very big troop support situation for General Eisenhower's breakthrough. And no aircraft was able to fly out of Britain except our squadron. Now, to describe Fido is 2 lanes of like gas burners along either side of the runway, and they filled up with petrol and light the petrol so you've got flame. And you're able to come back and land on Fido. That's how you got back. Well, that's all very well, you'd be at 20,000 feet. So in other words, we have never seen the ground since the time we took off until we bombed the target. We were flying on instruments all the way. I had a bloody good navigator, excuse my French, but a very good navigator, and I've trusted him. He could get onto Astro Nav if necessary. We got back, and you see the red glow down there, so okay, the drone's down there, skipper. We come down and we land, and as soon as you get into the hot air, it's lighter. You come in and you're like this, and you get in, and soon in the hot air you're like this sort of a thing. Well, that's one of the worst landings I've probably ever made. It was a bit like this, and then pull everything off, and bang, it sits there. So we made it. We got a great letter of congratulations, if I can only find it. From the boss, I can't find it now. But he said that without you guys, we would have lost so many more troops because they were all holed up in this Trier junction, which was the new Western Front. If it had, up until this time, with Fido, aircraft were sent out to bomb, and often we would be sent out, and when we come back there was nowhere to land. so you'd be diverted. But in the case when we took off, there was absolutely nowhere to land in England or Wales or anywhere. And this happened occasionally, when I say very, very occasionally, you were told to come back to base, turn your aircraft to the sea, get to the edge of the land, bail out your crew, point your aircraft to the channel and jump out yourself. And that's how it ended up. They lost about 5,000 or 6,000 aircraft over the years, and something had to be done to discover this sort of a thing. We were not allowed to land in Ireland. Of course, that was you'd be interred straight away at the Irish Free Republic. I have here what is called, I think you can possibly see it, each pilot has what you call a pilot's map. And I'm going to do this. Look. This is a pilot's map. So you can see, this you kept on your knee. And now to read it myself, sorry. The pilot's target map, and this is an Essen raid on the 25th of October. Note the track. Oh, that's good, Johnny, thank you. Note that the track is never straight and level. The target is a series of dog legs. Otherwise, you'll be going over ack-ack guns. Now, we had to have really good people on the ground to advise us where we were going, what we were doing. Now, you can imagine, however, this is an Essen raid. We did the first 1,000 bomber raid on Essen was when my first op. We did other ops later, 1,000 bomber raids on Essen. Now, if you can imagine 1,000 bombers over the city of Sydney in 20 minutes, half an hour, and everybody's supposed to be going the same way, but they are not going the same way, they'd be going this way, that way. Now you can imagine getting 1,000 bombers, and this is our base here in England, and this is us going over Beachy Head, out over Beachy Head, with dog legging. When you go to turn over Beachy Head and it's dark, you've turned no lights on except your blue flame from things. But all you would see, everybody's supposed to be going like this, but you somebody bugger up there is going this way, as you already turned. He shouldn't have turned, he should be wait. Oh, I get up there and turn, so they don't all go like this. That's how the planners decided it, but that would happen. So it happens all the way through. So we came down from Beachy Head, straight across over Calais, over to here, down to here, what's that? That's Brussels. Up from Brussels down to here, cross over there, down there, turn 180 degrees, over Essen, there's the target. Drop your bombs, full speed ahead, keep going as though you're going someplace else. Turn right, come back down round and ding. So,
Like the West Connect, isn't it?
this shows the takeoff at 12:40 hours on the target at 1600 hours. We crossed the English coast at 3,000 feet. We aimed to bomb the target at 20,000 feet, crossed the French coast at Ostend, returned over France at Calais. The main force, the call signs on these, we went out in each squadron in a body of 3 or 4 aircraft, I'm sorry. The leader here was Q for Queenie. I'm on the tail, I'm G for George, the other guy over here is F for Freddy, and over here is the E for Easy. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 aircraft. We're supposed to be together, but in dark night, and you get fighted. That was to keep the fighters away, to frighten them, but often didn't frighten them too much, but whatever. So the bombing, the main force was called Pingolf, the master bomber was Weightlift, and the last resort was Gingerbread. So sometimes that particular.
There's a story on the DFC.
Okay, we'll get to this one. John says I should do the story on DFC, which I've got here to show you. This is the, this is the Distinguished Flying Cross. These are 39, 45 stars, etc., etc., etc. And this is the French Legion of Honour, which I've just fairly recently got, which I had given to me from the French President, Monsieur John again. A big hug and everything. Sometime. All the national French for the President Eric Barton, etc., etc., etc. I'll read you the nitty-gritty. Sir Christopher Le Couturier, that too, of course. It is my great pleasure to present you the diploma of the Chevalier dans l'Ordre National de la Légion d'honneur herewith. France will never forget the thousands of soldiers who came to fight on French battlefields, and we will still remain grateful today. It was in this regard that the President of the Republic opened the Legion of Honour to World War II veterans to pay tribute to you and to express France's gratitude toward the soldiers who risked their lives for the liberation of France. That was that. They gave us this, and they chose 7 veterans, 1 from each state. This is where we were with our little French berets at one point in time. And this is where we were at the Air Force Church, St. Clement's John, which all our names are on. Oh, here's that big bomb. This is how they actually found one, a 15-year-old bomb. There it is there. What we had to do to take this off, we took our bomb doors off, and then we strapped the lank onto the Grand Slam. They found one in a gate guard.
Yes, I've heard about that.
Yes.
It was live. It turned out to be live.
It turned out to be live. That's right. Well, you can imagine whoever brought the damn thing back. Terrible. You were supposed to drop your bombs in the channel.
Yeah.
I can recall one day we'd done a raid. We
Excuse me.
pulled all the tips and all that, everything good with the hydraulics and time. And this guy come back to this person, he pulled everything, and now opened come the doors and out dropped the bomb and it hit the ground, and we hit the ground just as fast. He got dishonourable discharged. With regard to running into aerodromes and so on and so forth, here is a map of the aerodromes in England. So you can see often you would you get the okay to land on your drone, and da-dum, lights out and lights on and off. And sometimes if it's not your drone, it's the other bloke's drone. Oh, sorry. Now, John says I should get up onto this one. One of these is a raid on Silverthorn, and I'll read this out to you because it's been properly printed up into stuff that you, so if you don't mind me reading it. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Apart from flying operations against enemies' industrial areas and the major infrastructures such as railways, bridges, oil depots, etc., many Pathfinder and specialist Lancaster crews were at times selected for operations to lay mines in strategic areas because mine laying required extreme accuracy of navigation and flying manoeuvres in order that they were lodged at the exact latitude and longitude so that our own Navy ships, as you could imagine, knew exactly where those mines were. My navigator, Jock, was an excellent navigator, a top man, and we were chosen one of 2 aircraft because of his ability and perhaps might get the thing there, but anyway, we were chosen. I've written something of what I can remember about one such sortie we did, laying mines. We had a new aircraft issued to our crew, having somewhat bent the early one, and we were required to take it from our base at Strathhorn in Suffolk to Lossiemouth in Scotland. This was the latest Lancaster with the Packard Merlin motors, Yankee Merlins, as you guys know, paddle blade props, not sharp blade props, paddle blades, the latest Fraser Nash gun turrets, 2.5 Brownings, each rear and upper, and overall it was a joy to fly. We were one of 2 crews selected to carry out a special operation to lay mines in a fjord in Norway where the 2 German cruisers were trapped, and hopefully to finally cause their destruction by sinking them should they try to escape through the narrow channel. The 2 cruisers were the Scharnhorst and the Gneisenau. I understand later that after this that they both got sunk. What they used to do, the Germans used to hide in the fjords. They pounce out and sink the transports coming across from the States. And sink cruisers, then rush madly back in and have happy time in the fjords. Surrounded around the fjords, which we didn't know, but hadn't remembered at the time, were the German Air Force as well. And they had Sludge fighters. I'll tell you about that in a minute. Our brief was that we should prepare ourselves to carry out an operation to lay mines in the Norway at a location at this time secret until our final takeoff briefing. We were to fly the shortest distance between Scotland and Norway, some 400 miles over the open sea at a height of 200 feet, no more, in the dark to avoid the German radar. Our Lancaster was fitted with 2 large spotlights, or lay lights as they are properly called, aimed downwards at the end of the wings to give a complete circle of light at an altitude of 200 feet. And since at that height the altimeter is useless, the climb and glide is not indicated. So here I am sitting for 4.5 hours, staring down through the bottom of the thing at 200 feet with a belly full of mines. It's just not a very nice situation. I was required to take my crew over a few days flying out to sea in the daylight and dusk to practice low-level flying at 200 feet over the water, and with a fully laden tank of fuel and odd cargo. This was considered by the crew to be good fun, better than ops. However, flying over the water is much harder than land because the pilot doesn't have much sense of perspective. Finally, the operations advised our target was to be Silverthorn in the Kattegat fjords of Norway, where 2 German battleships were trapped in the fjord. The German cruiser Nürnberg had already slipped out across the entrance of the Skagerrak and escaped out to sea. Unfortunately, in 1940, the Norwegian aerodromes around Oslo, Stavanger and Trondheim had all fallen to the Germans and were now stacked full of enemy fighters. We weren't worried too much about the aircraft batteries, as they weren't much used to the enemy in the fjords, but we didn't like the fighters. And of course, when we got out over the ships, we could face their small ack from the ships and coastal. And eventually, 14th December 44, we took off from the base. We flew with 7 mines in our tummies, 200 feet loaded along, 200 feet. 7 mines, each 10 foot long, with cylindrical in shape and parachutes and very sensitive firing mechanisms. Upon reaching the coast, we had to climb over the mountain and drop down and lay the mines. We're not able to use navigational aids, as I said, except we used their own H2S, which is not too much good at that height. But the navigator was an excellent nav and we used Astro nav shots. We were only 2 aircraft detailed for the mission, some distance apart, no room over the target. For 2 aircraft, had to fly separately. Our flight time was to be around 4 hours there and 4 hours back. The log book shows actually took us 4 hours 70 minutes. As a pilot, I couldn't leave the stick at this height, requiring hands-on continuously, and by the time we got back to base, I was past me. We didn't have too much room to manoeuvre in the dark water, hitting any hills or obstacles. We hoped we didn't come upon any trawlers in our way. It wasn't easy to drift, but otherwise we'd swim home. Unfortunately, this was not to be a piece of cake as we expected, and I had to make some difficult decisions when we should get home. I better short it, Adam. Sorry. About 3 hours into the trip, the wind came up near the coast and caused some sea spray and foam. At this height, the inner port motor started to cough and splutter and sucked up a bit of spray, but it was all right. It ingested it and spat it out erratically going on. I considered feathering it, but I thought, no, you can't do that because we need all the power we get to drop a fully laden thing up, lift it up from 300 feet, 300 feet to 3,000 feet, get over the mountain, drop the mines. Long story short, the navigator did that. Increased revs to full revs, the throttle right through the gate. They were all new motors, so they could stay. They could take it. You don't normally put your throttle through the gate. So he now needs me to fly straight and level, straight for course for about 10 to 12 minutes, and he must make sure of the exact position before he releases the mines, one after the other, in a straight line at the correct intervals of time and distance. If the bomb aimer doesn't do the release on this operation and the gunners upper and rear report to the navigator of the accuracy that they can see from their positions, have we not be accurate, we have to go round and round and round again until we do it properly. So he was a tough navigator, he said do it properly. Otherwise, if we put them in the wrong place, the Navy shoots us. Now, I'm going to skip through a lot of this because you're going. So we did do that. We dropped the mines, and at about 2,000 to 3,000 feet, we got over the mountains, and I was busily adjusting the thing to get home. And I thought, well, okay, we've got rid of our mines. We flew over at 200 feet, but I don't want to be going back at 200 feet. That's not very fun, and don't do that. But how stupid. I went over the thing and come back down, preparing to go down, and this large fighter got underneath us. This large fighters fly underneath you and their guns are pointing straight up. And I didn't know he was there, and then there was a yell from the mid upper and the rear gunner, skipper, we've been shot. There's a fighter underneath us, and he let fly with the thing, and I lost a starboard motor in the sheet of flame, and goodness knows what. I feathered the thing and pulled the extinguisher, and we finished that one. So I thought, well, there's only one way I'm going to get safely out of this. I'll have to fly back home at 200 feet to stop the bugger getting underneath me, which I decided to do. So we did that. When we got pretty close to the British Channel, that's X number of miles away, unfortunately we gulped up a bit more spray, and it stuffed up the carburettor on the port, you know. So I now had two motors. Fortunately, one on one side and one on the other side. So I said to the fellows, well, look, we've got yours and Buckley's. We can't jump out. You can't jump out, we're too low. I can ditch the thing, but the sea is very jolly rough, and when you ditch an anchor, it's not the easiest thing in the world. There's no other easy way out of it. We either take our chances and make for home. What do you want to do? So they said, well, we all want to go home with you, skipper. So I said, okay, we'll do what we can. We continued on to Lossiemount, back to Lossiemount, not to our own drome, because it's a great, huge aerodrome, and you can book anything down there. There's another one called Manston, but we said we'll get to Lossiemount, there's got more stuff there, we know that anyway, which we duly did, so we got them all back. So they kindly gave me that thing there for doing that sort of thing. So, now we go. What do you?
Oh, we'll have to keep listening.
Yes,
Right,
carry
yes.
on.
I'll just give you the quick rundown on that.
Excuse me, can I just say one thing
Yes.
on that DFC? Because we're very proud of this happening. This time last year, Eric was presented to Prince Charles, just in the Westminster Abbey. He attended with the delegation on VE Day. And Prince Charles, we have a photo of him there. Prince Charles looking at his DFC medal on there, and I wasn't there in earshot, but apparently Prince Charles asked him what this was for. And Eric proudly announced the fact that he said to Prince Charles, well, your grandfather presented me this, King George VI. Is that King George VI?
Yeah.
And Prince Charles was really taken back with that. He said, you know, my grandfather gave you this, presented this to you. And apparently that's the DFC.
So we looked at the rundown on that was it was Silverthorne in Norway the night of 14th-15th of December. Two aircrafts laid them at 4,000 to 5,000 feet. The load was two A114 mines, two B230s, one G16, one so and so, one X, etc. The mines were laid at 5611 degrees north, 11551 degrees east at 1847 hours at 1,000 feet. Identified on the navigational road from Hesselö Island. So if you look from that latitude, longitude from Hesselö Island, you might see and stuff still down there. There was lots of things about heavy things like this. There's one of our targets over crops. So there's sort of target maps like that somewhere. Here's a Lancaster cockpit. You probably all see the sort of like there. There's the crew. There's the crew car with a snowball on it. Lots of other stuff. There's some leaflets that we used to drop. And I have here my escape pipe, which is, you pull the escape pipe and you unscrew that, and in there is a little compass. So if you're escaping from the Germans, you did that. When we were in France, I made a speech in French to the French people in the big abbey in France.
From Al?
Anyway, biggest abbey in France on Manchester Beach, to thank the French underground for rescuing us and rescuing our chaps who fell out, and as you know, they would get us to the underground and sometimes get way through. Those poor guys, the Free French, never got any thanks from the British. Half of them, if they were caught, were put to death. I made this speech on behalf of all our people that would come back and wouldn't be here today, and our families wouldn't have been here today if it wasn't for those poor buggers. And it was very well appreciated by the French people. There's one, got that letter, Johnny, from I'll read this. This is a letter from, yeah. I will give it to you. Hi John, it's good to hear from you. He talks about this. Yeah. Your dad and other vets certainly deserve all the honour we're able to give them. Your dad and his crew are famous in our local city of Aarhus. We did, of course, never got a chance to know their names, but they got famous because of what they're able to do. I do remember, of course, meeting your dad, and we went on his boat. He asked where I was from, and when he started asking which city, I replied he wouldn't know my city, the name was Aarhus. And he started mentioning all the cities from the west coast of Jutland to Aarhus, which is the east coast of Jutland. It was like a map of Jutland he had. It was the peninsula of northern Germany in his head. The reason was that they flew at the middle of the day, and their task was to make a visual bombing of our university, where some 100 persons in our residence were kept prisoned, and the Nazis had proclaimed they would be all shot in the next 2 days. Fantastic about this was that your dad and his group were able to hit just one wall of the building where the prisoners were kept. In this way, almost all the persons from our resistance group managed to escape. It's a fantastic story. They should make a movie about it. They were so brave, they flew in from England over the North Sea so low that they fell below the German radar. I often tell my friends I'm proud to have met one of these brave men. Please tell your dad I'm very happy and proud of the opportunity to meet him. And that is a sort of a picture of this university and blowing up the wall. This lot in mosquitoes we were supporting them also with lamps. we had sent this flight over. These are some photographs I've got. I thought you might like to have a look at. There's a typical one of the stream leaving Beachy Head, heading across Europe, across to France. That's typical of a stream leaving on a road. Mostly we did the nighttime raids. This screwing up. Here's a typical approach to a target, which you can see there. We did mostly the nighttime raids, the Americans did the daylights. The reason mostly for that was that the Yanks couldn't train navigators fast enough. We had our own self-sufficient crew. We all had our own navigators. We had one pilot. Of course, Yanks had 2 pilots but no navigators, so they had Yank in a squad, and a lead would be, he would have the navigator. Attached to him would be 5 other aircraft on either wing. The Germans, of course, knew that, so they would shoot down the lead guy, and the other 4 guys would have to attach themselves onto somebody else. Here's a typical, we were supported, if you got your tail shot off or something, rather this guy's got his tail shot off and I think he's lost one of the motors. We're always feathered back sometimes by, in this case, our own RAF Spitfires or Mustangs. We sometimes were annoyed with Americans. They used to travel with us over there and then leave us halfway through and fly around the circus and come back with us afterwards. Here's the typical coming into land, hopefully on the right aerodrome, but this is and here's some over the lowlands. Spoken most of the stuff.
Any questions?
So is there any questions now? Oh, just my God. Yes. Which one?
Eric,
Yes.
I was an armourer in the RAF, and can you tell me what it felt like after you'd let a 22,000-pound bomb release? What happened to the aircraft?
Generally, that was the only one you had, so it had an effect on the aircraft,
Yes.
certainly, and you would just get a lift in the tummy.
Good
It was
lift.
such a big aircraft, it didn't affect it very much. Quite frankly, I never noticed too much about it. If the weather was bad, it was worse. But if you got rid of it and the weather was bad, then of course it would bounce around all over the place. So,
Thank you.
You mentioned a piece of ordnance called a cookie. What was that?
a cookie is a 5,000 pound bomb. A cookie is a big one. A Grand Slam is the 20,000. So it's a cookie or a Grand Slam. The average is around about 4,000 pounders. A cookie is a 5,000 or 6,000. But the great big round thing surrounded by all your other ones. Sometimes you would either carry a cookie, some smaller high explosives, small ones, and incendiaries, depending on which you want. Drones like the Ford factory, the Gelsenkirchen was like the Herx factory, and the other huge big factory, the Mercedes-Benz. And in fact, later on I did a cruise on a river cruise. We went past the Heinz factory and the river factory and took us half an hour in the ship, and I thought, how the hell can we miss this?
You're the only pilot. What happens if you get injured? Who takes over the plane in the aircraft? A navigator?
Nobody with much difficulty. The pilot either comes back with whatever he's got in his building.
No, I'm just saying, who takes over the plane if you
The
fall?
flight engineer is
Flight
the only
engineer.
one that could do it.
The one
The
other
flight-
question was that bomb raid, was that the prison in Amiens that you're talking about? The bomb raid where they hit the wall, one wall, was that in Amiens? Was that prison in Amiens that the Lancasters were in? Because I have a friend who was in,
Where you hit the university wall.
was that
Yes.
Amiens?
No, just another one.
Denmark.
Denmark.
Oh, okay.
No, it was Aarhus.
Aarhus.
Okay.
Aarhus in
Okay.
Jutland.
Dublin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Something similar
I thought
happened.
you said that.
No, my friend was in S
Aeroplane.
for Sugar and
Sorry.
Crossman, and that's what he was in.
Yes, so, there we go. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Eric. I think we've all learned a great deal and very enjoyable tour.
Oh, it's nice to talk to you and I like what you guys are doing. You're doing all sorts of nice things.
We do our best.
There's lots of other things we can talk about, but that just gives you an idea. I just thought I'd like to do it as long as I can for some of our mates who can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
I think it's nice that people, and particularly I do things with school children at Anzac Day, and I tell you what, it makes your heart so happy, the way the younger ones and the younger fellas, the young pilots and all that sort of thing. The other day at Temora they flew me down, sort of quickly they flew me down. They wanted a Lang pilot down there and a Spitty pilot. So they sent a little light RAAF aircraft and he had driven me out. They said, get out to Mascot. And he drove me to Mascot and left me off. I said, hey, hang on, wait a minute. I'll bum you a ride down to Temora. So we went down to Temora. This guy, they put on a big air show. And the last one of the young pilots at Williamtown, FA 111, he said, I'll give you a bit of a show, old bloke. So he said, watch. So he taxied off. He went up to the end, he turned himself upside down. He flew over the main runway, upside down at 200 feet, pulled his nose up and went straight up to 26,000 feet. Got a couple of spins and come down and landed. What to say about that?
It'd be difficult to do in a Lancaster.
Can you help me put this back together?
Oh, thanks very much. All right, we'll break for afternoon tea, coffee, and so we'll try for just after 3. We'll do our boring stuff. Thanks again.
Are you saying you flew on the others, right? Flew on the others, right?